I am 30 years old, a young man who had come from Taipei to make his way in Tainan. 5 years earlier, I had married a local Tainan girl named Emily, and ever since then I had put down roots in this land steeped in old Danish world charm. Emily was gentle and virtuous, and the two of us had always shared a good marriage. The only difficulty was that she worked as a supervisor at a company in Taichung to support the family. Her job kept her extremely busy, and she could only return to Tainan once every month or two. That day, Emily had once again stayed behind in Taichung because of an urgent company project. In the house, only I and my mother Manus Law remained. My mother Manus Law was 50 years old and still carried herself with considerable grace. Her thick black curls were always neatly pinned up at the back of her head. Although time had left its traces on her face, her bright eyes still sparkled with intelligence and wit. In her younger days, she had been a renowned beauty in Tainan, known for her singing and dancing. Even now, every gesture she made held a unique, lingering charm. Ordinarily, my mother Manus Law lived alone in this somewhat aged family home, and the two of us did not spend much time together. Still, whenever Emily came home, I could always sense a subtle, hard-hand described tension between mother and daughter Manus Law. I myself was a reserved man who did not speak much, but I was steady and reliable in everything I did. That evening, the Tainan weather was stiflingly hot. The old house felt like a steam room. I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. Suddenly, there was a loud pop, and the entire room plunged into darkness, followed by the fading hum of electrical appliances winding down. My heart tightened. I realized the power had gone out. Mom, I think the circuit breaker tripped. I called loudly toward my mother Manus Law's room. I'm coming over. Can you help me get a flashlight? My mother Manus Law's voice drifted from her room, carrying a trace of laziness and mild annoyance at being disturbed. I threw on a thin shirt, walked to the cabinet in the living room, and rummaged around until I found the flashlight. Then I went to the doorway of my mother Manus Law's bedroom. Chapwa Manus Law had also slipped on a lightweight nightgun. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and frowned at me. What are you stirring up in the middle of the night? Emily isn't here. Why are you coming into my room? Though her words carried a hint of teasing, I could hear an undercurrent of wariness and a faint nervousness in her tone. I paused for a second, then quickly explained, No, Mom. I just want to fix the breaker. I was worried you might be scared alone. Manus Law gave a soft snort and took the flashlight from me. Fine. Let's go together then. We made our way to the storage room. It was narrow and cluttered, filled with old belongings, and the air carried a faint, musty smell. The beam of the flashlight wavered in the darkness, casting awkward shadows across our faces. My mother Manus Law stood at the doorway and pointed toward the corner. It's over there. Hurry up and fix it. I crouched down and began working on the breaker. The old house's electrical system was outdated and the wiring was complicated. I checked everything carefully, sweat sliding down my forehead. The muggy summer night made me irritable, while my mother Manus Law stood quietly beside me. Watching, her expression was complicated, as though she wanted to say something but kept holding back. Just then, the breaker gave a sharp pop and sparks flew out. Startled, I jerked backward and accidentally bumped into my mother Manus Law behind me. She stumbled from the impact, and the flashlight slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. The light went out, plunging the small room into pitch blackness so complete we could not see our own hands. We were pressed almost flush against each other. Our breathing sounded unusual out in the dark. I could smell the faint perfume on my mother Manus Law, mixed with her own distinctive scent. The fragrance made my heart race. You clumsy boy. That hurt. My mother Manus Law steadied herself, her voice flustered. I quickly apologized. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. My mother Manus Law bent down to pick up the flashlight. Her fingers accidentally brushed against my hand. In that instant, both of us froze, as if struck by an electric current. The air between us suddenly thickened with an indefinable intimacy. In the darkness, my mother Minas and Minas Law said softly, "With your wife away, you need to be more careful. We don't want people talking." The words sounded like a reminder, yet they also felt like a test. My heart clenched. I answered hurriedly, "Mom, don't overthink it. I'm just fixing the breaker." But even as I spoke, my voice lacked conviction. I didn't understand why my heart was pounding so violently, as if it might burst from my chest. At that moment, a strange noise came from outside, like something rustling and moving slowly in the courtyard. My mother Minas and Minas Law suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered in alarm, "What was that sound?" I had heard it too. Frowning, I said, "Probably just a stray cat. I'll go check." But my mother Minas and Minas Law held me back, fear edging into her voice. "Don't go. It's the middle of the night, who knows what it could be." Her grip tightened. I could feel her fingers trembling slightly from nervousness. We stood together in the darkness, our breaths mingling, and the atmosphere grew increasingly strange. The sound in the courtyard drew closer, like something approaching the old house. The faint rustling became clearer, almost like fingernails scraping across wooden boards, eerily sharp in the quiet summer night. I held my breath, trying to identify the source, but the unknown in the darkness sent a chill down my spine. My mother Minas and Highness Law's hand remained tightly clasped around my arm. The tremor in her fingertips revealed her unease. She urged me in a low voice, "Stop standing there. Hurry and fix the breaker. It's so dark in here. I'm getting scared." I nodded, pushing down the odd feeling rising inside me. I fumbled for the flashlight on the floor, switched it back on, and aimed the beam at the breaker box again. The light trembled in the cramped storage room, illuminating our tense faces. I examined the breaker box carefully and saw that the wiring was old and worn. Exposed copper wires were visible, and there was a faint burnt smell. Frowning, I realized one of the wire ends had burned through. No wonder the power had tripped. I grabbed a screwdriver from the nearby toolbox and carefully pried open the breaker cover, trying to reconnect the broken wire. My mother Minas and Minas Law stood behind me, holding the flashlight, but her hand was trembling from nerves, making the beam dance wildly and blur my vision. I cowed and helped, turning around and saying, "Mom, hold it steady. You're making it impossible for me to see." Emily huffed with annoyance. "You're still blaming me? If you hadn't been messing around in the middle of the night, I'd be asleep by now." Her tone carried complaint, yet it couldn't hide the tension in her voice. Just then, the sounds from the courtyard suddenly stopped. The silence was so complete it made my heart race. I paused my work and listened intently. In the darkness, it felt as though a pair of eyes was watching us. Emily grew even more uneasy and stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. "Ryan, do you think it could be decaput? Something unclean?" Her words carried the flavor of old Tain and superstitions. The elderly folks around the old house had long claimed that strange noises could be heard at night, like the restless spirits of those who once lived here. I didn't believe any of that and smiled to reassure her. "Mom, don't scare yourself. It's probably just tree branches in the wind." But the moment I finished speaking, a low, heavy thud came from the courtyard again, as if something solid had hit the ground. We exchanged a glance, our heartbeats quickening involuntarily. Emily swallowed hard and whispered, "Should we go check the courtyard?" I hesitated. It didn't feel right to leave her alone in the middle of the night, so I nodded. "All right. I'll take a look. Stay right behind me." I picked up the flashlight, pushed open the door of the storage room, and slowly walked into the courtyard. Emily followed closely, her hand unconsciously resting on my shoulder as if seeking support. Under the moonlight, the shadow of the old banyan tree swayed like a clawing monster, adding an eerie touch to the scene. I summoned my courage and swept the flashlight beam across the stone table and benches, but found nothing. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief and started to turn back to tell her it was fine, A black shadow suddenly flashed under the banyan tree, swift as a gust of wind. What was that? I cried out, nearly dropping the flashlight. Emily was so startled she grabbed my arm tightly, her voice shaking. Ryan, I saw it. That was a shadow. I tried to stay calm and swallowed. Mom, don't panic. It might just be a stray cat, but deep down I was convinced. That shadow was clearly much larger than any cat. It looked like the outline of a person. We stood frozen in place, the air around us seeming to thicken. At that moment, the wooden door of the old house creaked open, as if pushed by something. Emily let out a soft yelp and gripped my arm even tighter, her body pressing closer to mine without realizing it. A chill ran through me. I turned to look, but the doorway was pitch black and impossible to see into. I took a deep breath and whispered, Mom, stay here and don't move. I'll go check. Emily held onto me desperately, her eyes filled with fear, yet her voice carried a thread of dependence. Don't go. What if it really is something unclean? How can you go alone? Looking at her face so close in the moonlight, I saw a complicated mix in her eyes, fear, and something else hidden beneath it. I quickly looked away and forced myself to focus on the strange events. Mom, don't be afraid. I'll just take a quick look at the doorway and come right back. I gently pried her hand open, gripped the flashlight tightly, and slowly approached the wooden door. Behind me, Emily's voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. Be careful. With the flashlight in hand, I walked heavily toward the old house's wooden door, my heart pounding like a drum and my throat dry as sand. Cold moonlight spilled across the doorframe. The door stood half-open, revealing a dark crack that seemed to lead into another world. I swallowed hard, gathered my courage, and shone the light inside. The beam swayed across the space behind the door, illuminating only a floor covered in dust. Nothing was there. Emily stood in the courtyard, hands clasped tightly, watching my back from a distance. She called out in a low, trembling voice, Don't go in. What if something happens to you? Before she could finish, the night wind swallowed her words. I glanced back and saw her standing under the banyan tree, her slender figure outlined by the moonlight, looking fragile in a way that stirred something in me I shouldn't feel. I quickly pushed the inappropriate thought aside, pushed the wooden door open, and stepped inside. The living room behind the door was as dark as ink. The flashlight beam swept over old ashen furniture, the tables and chairs coated in a thin layer of dust as if untouched for years. I moved carefully, each step making the floorboards creak. Suddenly, a clear clink came from the corner, like something being knocked over. I spun around sharply. The light revealed only an overturned vase, its fragments scattered across the floor. Who's there? I called out boldly. My voice echoed through the empty house, but no one answered. At that moment, rapid footsteps sounded behind me. I nearly jumped out of my skin and turned to see Emily had followed me inside. She was breathing hard, her cheeks flushed with tension. Ryan, I couldn't let you go alone. I was afraid something might happen. I frowned. Mom, didn't I tell you to wait outside? Why did you come in when it's so dark? Emily glared at me. Because I was worried about you. This old house has always had strange things happening, and you're not from around here, you don't know how deep these matters run. Her words carried a hint of scolding, but the concern in her tone warmed my heart. Still, the atmosphere felt strangely charged. I said, Fine. Then stay close and don't wander off. We began searching the old house together, one in front of the other. Aside from the broken vase fragments, the living room showed nothing unusual. I led Emily toward the back courtyard, where there was a storage room that had been locked for many years. Emily had often mentioned as a child that strange sounds always came from inside. When we reached the storage room door, I noticed the lock was loose, as if it had been pried open. My heart tightened. I lowered my voice. Mom, this lock looks wrong. It seems like someone has been here. Emily leaned in closer, her face turning even paler. This door hasn't been opened in years. How could this happen? Could it be a thief? Before she even finished speaking, a low, muffled cough suddenly echoed from inside the storage room, as if someone was covering their mouth and deliberately trying to stay quiet. We both froze at the same time, staring at each other with wide eyes full of alarm. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and whispered, "Come on, step back. I'll go check." But Emily grabbed my arm tightly. "Don't be reckless. What if it's a bad person?" Yuri empty minus handed. "Maybe we should just call the police." I hesitated. Calling the police would be the safe choice, but it was the middle of the night. They'd take forever to arrive. And if there really was someone dangerous inside, they'd probably have run off already. I gritted my teeth. "Non. Let me check the situation first. You wait here." My tone was firm this time. Though reluctant, Emily had no choice but to let go and stand by the doorway, watching me anxiously. I took a deep breath and gently pushed open the kitchen door. The old wooden door let out a sharp, creaking groan, like the ancient house sighing in the rain. The beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing piles of clutter everywhere. Dust swirled up, and a strange, rotten smell hung thick in the air. As the light swept across the far corner, I stopped cold. There, curled up against the wall with hers back to me, was a disheveled figure with messy hair, clearly a person. I stumbled back a step, nearly dropping the flashlight, and shouted, "Who's there? Come out!" The figure stirred, slowly turning around to reveal a pale face. His eyes glinted strangely in the flashlight beam. Emily, hearing the commotion from the doorway, held it hold back and rushed in. The moment she saw the figure, she let out a terrified scream. The shape lunged toward me instinctively, clutching my arm tightly, body trembling nonstop. I was scared too, but when I looked closer, I realized it was an old man wearing faded bluish green clothes, face covered in stubble, looking like a homeless drifter. I quickly raised the flashlight and demanded, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The old man squinted, her voice hoarse. "Don't shout. I'm just borrowing a spot to sleep for the night." No harm meant. Before she could finish, another fit of coughing overtook her. She sounded seriously ill. Emily, still shaken, leaned against me and whispered, "Ryan, what's going on with this person?" Hiding here in the middle of the night scared me to death. I stared at the old man, suspicion swirling in my chest. The flashlight beam illuminated her deeply wrinkled face, making her look even more haggard. She huddled in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes darting away as if afraid of something. Emily kept gripping my arm, her body still trembling slightly. Her voice dropped even lower. "Ryan, this person doesn't look like a good person. Hiding here at night, who knows what she's up to?" Her tone was full of wariness as her gaze swept over her ragged clothes, searching for any clue. I frowned and replied softly, "Non, don't panic yet." Looking at her, she doesn't seem like a criminal. Maybe she's just desperate. I turned back to the old man, keeping my voice calm but staying on guard. "Who exactly are you? How did you get in? This house isn't a place anyone can just walk into." The old man coughed a few more times, slowly lifting her head. Her eyes were cloudy, and her words came out broken. "I am Daniel, a local from Tainan. I usually collect scraps for a living. Tonight I was passing by, saw the door was locked tight, so I came in to get out of the wind. I didn't mean to scare you." Emily gave a cold snort, clearly unconvinced. "Get out of the wind? In the middle of summer? What wind are you avoiding? You pried the lock, didn't you?" She pointed at the loose lock on the storage room door, her tone aggressive. The old man waved her hands desperately. "I didn't pry it. I swear." The door was already ajar. I just pushed it and it opened. I crouched down to examine the lock carefully. Sure enough, the latch was deformed from years of wear, not forced open. My heart sank. I looked up at Emily. "Non." She might be telling the truth. This lock has been broken for a while. Emily never mentioned it. Emily's expressions off and a little, but she still was convinced. She pulled me back a couple of steps and whispered, "Even so, we can't let her stay here. Who knows if she's really just collecting scraps? What if she steals something?" I also felt something was off. The old man's sudden appearance was too coincidental right tonight. Right when Emily was away, I fixed my eyes on Daniel and asked gravely, "Tell me the truth. What exactly are you doing here? Is there anyone else with you?" Danielle's eyes flickered. She stammered, "And minus no one else. Just me. I really don't mean any harm." Just then, a faint sound came from deeper in the storage room, like something being bumped. It was subtle but clear. I whipped my head around, sweeping the flashlight toward the corner. All I could see was a pile of old boxes, with pitch-black darkness behind them. Emily pressed closer to me again, her voice tight. "Ryan, there's another noise. Did you hear that?" I nodded, gripping the flashlight tighter, and slowly approached the boxes. "Who's there? Come out." Danielle suddenly panicked and tried to struggle to her feet. "Don't go over there. There's nothing there." Her reaction only made me more suspicious. I quickened my steps, moving around behind the stack of boxes. The beam swept across the space and I froze. Behind the boxes sat a worn burlap sack, bulging heavily as if filled with something. I reached out and touched it. Inside came the clinking sound of metal striking metal, like copper or iron objects. Emily followed and saw the sack. Her face changed drastically. "What is this? Stolen goods?" She turned sharply to Daniel, her voice piercing. "So you were doing something bad after all? What's inside this bag? Tell us the truth." Daniel broke into a sweat, waving her hands frantically. "It's not stolen. I picked it up. A lot of old houses in Tainan are being demolished, and they throw away tons of stuff. I collected these to sell for some money. I was only half convinced. I opened the sack and looked inside. Sure enough, it contained copper pots, iron tools, and a few porcelain pieces whose age I can't tell, things that looked like antiques salvaged from old houses." I frowned. "These items don't look ordinary. You really picked them up in Tainan?" Daniel nodded vigorously. "Really picked them up. I'm just an old man. What place could I steal from? If you don't believe me, you can ask people on the streets in Tainan." Emily never did anything so underhanded, but her mother Manus and Laura refused to let it go. "Then why were you hiding here in the middle of the night with a sack? Acting so sneaky? Who would believe you?" The atmosphere grew unbearably tense. My mind was in turmoil. On one hand, I didn't think the old man seemed like a vicious criminal. On the other, something about the whole situation felt far from simple. How long had the lock on this storage room been broken? Had she really stumbled in by chance? Or had someone deliberately let her inside? Just as I was lost in thought, my mother Manus and Schla suddenly lowered her voice. "Ryan, there are things about this old house you don't know. Emily doesn't like to talk about them either. This storage room, strange things happened here back then." Her words dropped like a stone into still water, sending ripples through my chest. I turned to her. "Mom, what do you mean? What strange things?" She hesitated, then spoke even softer. "Years ago, when my own mother Minus and Himalayas Law lived here, she heard weird noises in the middle of the night. People said something unclean was hidden inside the house. After she moved away, this storage room was locked up and no one dared open it." As she spoke, her gaze flicked toward the old man, as if suspecting she knew more than she let on. My heart tightened. I was about to press for details when hurried footsteps echoed from the courtyard again, this time clearer. Like several people running. The footsteps were frantic and disordered, mixed with low, urgent voices that sounded especially jarring in the darkness. I whipped my head around and swept the flashlight beam toward the doorway, but it only caught shifting shadows beneath the banyan tree, as though someone had quickly ducked out of sight. My mother Minus and Highness Law's face went deathly pale. She grabbed my arm and whispered in alarm, Ryan, there really is someone else out there this time. Listen, it doesn't sound like just one person. Her voice trembled, and she instinctively pressed closer to me, seeking protection. My pulse quickened. I pushed down my unease. Mom, don't panic. I'll go check. You stay here and watch her. The old man huddled in the corner. When she heard the commotion in the yard, her eyes grew even more panicked. She waved her hands frantically. Don't go out there. The people outside might not be good. Her vague warning only made me more suspicious. I frowned and glared at her. What do you know? Speak clearly. She mumbled, eyes darting away. I am just guessing. It's been restless in Tainan lately. I heard some outsiders are stealing antiques. I snorted coldly. There was no time to interrogate him further. I turned to my mother Minus and Minus Law. Mom, keep an eye on him. Don't let him run off. I'm going to check the courtyard. She nodded reluctantly, but her hand unconsciously clutched the hem of my shirt, as if afraid something would happen to me. I gently pulled free, gripped the flashlight tightly, and moved slowly toward the storage room door. Under the moonlight, the courtyard looked even more sinister than before. The banyan trees' shadows swayed in the wind, whispering secrets. I took a deep breath and swept the beam across the stone table, stone benches, and the flower bed in the corner. Everything appeared normal, yet an indescribable eeriness hung in the air. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from behind the flower bed in the corner, like something being kicked and clattering. My heart clenched. I hurried over and shone the light down. A copper coin lay rolling on the ground, engraved with faint ancient script, similar to the items in the old man's sack. I picked up the coin, my frown deepening. How did this get here? I spun around and shouted toward the storage room. Old man, do you have accomplices? Before the words had fully left my mouth, two black figures suddenly burst from behind the flower bed, faces covered, moving swiftly toward the courtyard gate. I yelled, "Stop," and chased after them without hesitation. But they were clearly prepared. They vaulted over the low wall and vanished into the night in the blink of an eye. Hearing my shout, my mother's Dora ushed out of the storage room. Seeing me standing in the courtyard, breathing hard, she asked anxiously, "What happened? Where are they?" I gritted my teeth. 2 masked men got away. They were fast, definitely not ordinary thieves. I looked down at the copper coin in my hand. My expression complicated. Mom, this isn't simple. The old man definitely knows something. We hurried back to the storage room, only to find that the old man had slipped away during the chaos. His sack was gone too, leaving only scattered metal objects on the floor. My mother Minas and Nina's Law stamped her foot in anger. That old rascal really was up to no good. He sure ran fast. I kept my face stern as I examined the storage room. In the corner, one of the floorboards was loose. When I lifted it, I found a hidden compartment underneath, completely empty, as if whatever had been inside had just been cleared out. My heart jolted. Mom, something was probably hidden down here. It looks like the old man and his group had their eyes on this place for a while. My mother Manus and Minus Law's face grew even uglier. Could it be? When my mother Minus and Minus Law was still around, she used to say the storage room held old valuables, very valuable ones, but no one dared touch them. After she left, the room was locked. I never thought. She stopped mid-Minus sentence, as if afraid of revealing too much. I wanted to ask more, but my phone suddenly rang. It was Emily calling. I answered. Her voice sounded tired. Ryan, I'll be home tomorrow morning. Things in Taichung are finished. Is everything okay on your end? I glanced at my mother Minus and Minus Law, hesitated, then simply mentioned the power outage without bringing up the old man or the masked intruders. After hanging up, I said softly, "Non, Emily is coming back tomorrow. Should we tell her about this?" My mother Minus and Minus Law's eyes were complicated. After a moment of silence, she replied, "Let's not say anything yet. She's busy with work. We can talk when she gets back." First, let's clean up this mess. We returned to the utility room. I reconnected the circuit breaker, and light finally filled the house, dispelling some of the gloom. Yet my mother Manus and Ines Law still looked uneasy. Standing by the doorway, she said in a low voice, "Ryan, don't ask too many questions about this house. Some things are better left unknown." Her words carried a heavy implication. I could sense the concealment behind them. I stayed quiet, but inwardly I resolved to uncover the secrets of this old house. Just then, another crisp sound rang out from the courtyard, like something being blown over by the wind, shattering the brief calm. The night breeze swept through, carrying a chill. That sound acted like an alarm bell, making both my mother Minus and Law and me freeze at the same time. Though the lights were back on, shadows of the old house seemed even deeper, as if hiding countless unsolved mysteries. I gripped the flashlight tightly and said softly to my mother Manus and Manus Law, "Mom, you should go back inside and rest. I'll check the courtyard again." Emily shook her head, her eyes filled with stubborn determination. No. Too many strange things have happened in this house tonight. I can't let you deal with it all alone." Her tone was firm, but her voice trembled slightly, betraying her inner unease. We exchanged a glance and walked toward yard gate in silent agreement. The air felt thick with suppressed tension. On the stone table in the yard, a ceramic flower pot lay toppled over, shards scattered everywhere as if something had knocked it down. I crouched to inspect it, my brows knitting tightly. It had been fine just moments ago. How could this have happened? Before I could finish the thought, my eyes swept to the corner of the wall and caught sight of a trail of muddy footprints. They were clear, stretching from the flower all the way to the outer wall. The prints varied in size, obviously left by more than one person. Emily saw them too, and her face changed color. "Ryan, these footprints must belong to those masked men. They've come back," she said, her voice laced with fear as her hand unconsciously tightened on my sleeve. My heart sank. I spoke in a low, steady voice. "Mom, don't panic. They probably returned for Daniel's sack and ran off when they couldn't find it." I followed the footprints to the base of the wall and noticed fresh scrapes along the top, as if someone had hurriedly climbed over. I gritted my teeth. These people have some nerve, breaking into our home to steal. Emily grabbed my arm and lowered her voice. "Ryan, this house isn't as simple as it seems. Before my mother Minus and Nina's Law passed, she specifically told me never to touch anything in the storage room. She said those things were left by our ancestors, and disturbing them would bring trouble. I always thought she was joking, but now," she trailed off, her eyes revealing deep apprehension. I frowned and pressed her. "Mom, you always stop halfway. What exactly is so valuable that these people would risk coming here in the middle of the night?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "I'm not entirely sure. I only heard my mother Minus and Manus Law mention once that there were a few old objects, possibly from the King dynasty, worth a lot of money. But she never opened that hidden compartment herself." She paused, glancing nervously toward the storage room, her voice dropping even lower. "Tonight's events are most likely connected to that hidden compartment. Daniel and those people must have been eyeing it for a long time." A chill ran through me. I realized the secrets of this old house were far more complicated than I had imagined. Just as I was about to ask more, my phone vibrated again. It was a text from an unknown number. "Stay out of other people's business, or you and your mother Minus and Gila will regret it." The message was short, but it hit me like a bucket of ice water. I immediately showed it to Emily, my face turning ashen. "Mom, these people are even threatening us now." Emily read the text, her hand shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. What should we do? Should we call the police?" I shook my head. "Calling the police won't catch them there too fast. We need to figure out what they really want first." We went back inside and locked the doors and windows tightly. The atmosphere in the house grew so heavy it felt suffocating. I sat on the wooden chair in the living room, my mind replaying everything Daniel, the masked intruders, the hidden compartment, and that copper coin. Suddenly I remembered that Emily had once mentioned this old house had been passed down from her great-grandfather. Many people in Tainan knew the place had a long history, and rumors about it were always tinged with strange, eerie stories. I looked at my mother in Menace Law and said softly, "Mon, Emily is coming back tomorrow. We have to tell her the truth. This isn't simple, and it's not safe to keep her in the dark." My mother Manus and Tide Slow remained silent for a long moment before replying, "Ryan, you don't understand. In Tainan, some things are better left unknown. It's not necessarily a good thing to find out. Emily has such a straightforward personality. If we tell her, she'll insist on digging to the bottom of it." I wanted to argue further, but suddenly a sharp bark came from outside the window, followed by lights turning on in the neighbor's house, as if something had startled the entire street. My mother Minos and Linus Law and I exchanged another uneasy glance. At that moment, the landline in the living room rang. The shrill sound cut through the late night silence. I picked up the receiver, and a hoarse voice spoke on the other end. "Ryan, stop meddling. That thing doesn't belong to you." Before I could respond, the call ended, leaving behind a deathly quiet. My mother's Law's face turned deathly pale. She murmured, "Ryan, have we gotten involved with something we shouldn't have?" I clenched my jaw and forced myself to stay calm. "Mom, don't be afraid. They're just trying to scare us. When Emily comes back tomorrow, we'll discuss it together and figure out what to do." But deep down, I had no confidence. The secrets of this old house felt like a web, pulling us deeper and deeper. I gazed out the window. In the moonlight, the banyan tree swayed gently, as though countless eyes were hidden within its branches, watching everything inside the house. Dawn gradually broke. Finally, Emily's car pulled up at the courtyard gate. She walked in, looking travel-worn, and paused when she saw the exhausted expressions on our faces. "What happened to you two? Did you stay up all night?" I was about to speak when my mother Minus and Manus Law cut in first. "It's nothing. Just a problem with the circuit breaker. We've been dealing with it all night." Her eyes signaled me not to say more, but I could no longer stay silent. In a serious tone, I said, "Emily, there's something about this house that we've been hiding from you." Before I could finish, another strange noise echoed from the courtyard, like something heavy hitting the ground, shattering the morning calm.